wrote an intriguing book on politics, power, and the female gender, which she says portrays the demystification of social aberrations that have hindered the greatness of the human mind. The author of the 122-page book says it challenges conventions, providing fresh insight into politics and power. Adora Signet-Jack is in the studio with me as we briefly talk on what the book and its provocative title is pushing for. Thank you so much, Adora. Let's start. You're already laughing because the title, when somebody saw the book with me, I think two days ago, and was like, wow, what title is this? I said, well, when you go into the book, you will understand why the author decided to choose the title. So how did you come about this?
All right, so I'll start with the fact that, first, thank you so much, Ijoma, for having me. It's a pleasure to be on your show. First, you know, when you look at I think the third page where you have the introduction, it explains it all, where I said the hue and cry about the topic and the theme of this book was one of the things that emphasized the need to write it as it is. Unambiguous, unbiased, straight, truthful, and uncolored. Because, you know, it's been in the forefront of the media, it's been in the entertainment sector, it's been in science, it's been across all sectors, and it's something that people talk about, you know, with bravery behind closed doors, but are ashamed to really bring expression to, because they have normalized the act or the conversation or the act of the conversation as something that is to be dreaded or dirty. And the title of the book sort of emphasizes the need for us to look at demystifying gender narratives and identities that have limited women across all sectors and across all spaces, especially politics.
And you can see the book there.
Yes, especially politics. And for me, you know, it took about like 2 years plus just after I ran elections to put this book together. And I can tell you that going through decades of consultation, talking to mentors, you know, some were like, why would you put up, you know, power roses in politics, power, you know, moon in politics, power sunshine in politics. You know, there was so much emphasis to discolor, you know, the real issues, you know, within the terminology that I was going to use. And for me, that really gave me quite a scare. It meant that we have, you know, there has been a lot of socialization in terms of normalizing gender identities that seemingly people think are not the causes of gender-based violence, but are also innuendos to it. And this is one of the things that gave me the passion, and first of all, the gut feeling that I was on the right track. And I can tell you that when people first of all see the title, the curiosity makes them want to pick up the book and open it, and they go straight to the chapter that talks about it. And they want to unravel why this title. And they come to see that, wow, this really is true in a large context. I mean, I had to convince my dad before I actually used the title. And, you know, he's a new convert to come to see that, you know, we don't know these things till it is explained to us in real terms, especially with experiences and how people connote it.
Okay, you see, when I went through the book, and I saw that you were actually telling those who have not had the privilege of being into politics what politics actually means, especially in this part of the world, where you see politicians doing what you can't even imagine, the backdoor politics, not what you see, not the common political stories that you see on TV, but the main politics is being played somewhere. I saw the Adora that contested election. Can you just take us into some of that?
All right, so I think that's on page 23 where I talked about politics, politricks and politics. And, you know, I gave the analogy on politics where the common good of the people comes to the fore, you know, servitude, community service, engaging the people, the purpose of service and not the purpose of power grabbing. And that was the essential, you know, definition of politics for me in that analysis. And then I also came to, you know, the politricks, which is what we practice mainly in Africa and some other parts of the world, which is the underbelly of politics. And when I talk about the underbelly of politics, I talk about, you know, the proverbial dark horse, where we are the citizens as the dark horse, and those people in the political field are actually the people self-serving themselves. And what that means is that they bring on board manipulation, they bring on board, you know, intimidation, they bring on board deceit, dishonesty, and, you know, violence and exclusion of women. And so that in itself gives the birth of politics, where you get a lot of politicians, they come up with their manifesto, wonderful, they tell it that they have this to provide for the people, and at the end of the day, when they get the votes and get there, you find out that it was all, foreplay at first sight, and nothing really went down. There was no really real-time intercourse between them and the citizens, and that's what plays out. And then you also come to the politics, and when you think about ticks is an insect that latches onto the skin to suck blood, and in that definition, it means how the politicians use political ideals to confuse the general masses, the citizens, that the politics is about themselves. But no, they are using taxpayers' money, they are looting country treasury, they are taking their children and family abroad, they are not providing infrastructure, and then they keep giving you the message of hope. And then the question is, when will that happen? So what happens is that they latch onto us and our believability to the point where we get vulnerable enough to say, hey, we are tired of this, and then perhaps a revolution can come. But, whether we are evolving, perhaps, but slowly, but I do believe that for me as a woman in the Nigerian political context, I feel that these are the limiting factors that has created higher barriers. I mean, in 16 days of activism, and everybody's talking about, ending gender-based violence. What about looking at the gender norms? What about looking at the gender identities? What about looking at the, emboldening atmosphere of wrong connotations and normalizing socialization through the patriarchal eyes? And when you are defining a woman, you define her as a woman and not as the other word.
Yes.
And you begin to also ask yourself, why is it that, derogatory traditional concepts are emboldened? Why is it that female genital mutilation is about the genital? Why is it that you have to define and dread the word of a female genital to mean that, oh, when she grows up to a certain age, she becomes flirtatious, so you have to nip it off just before she gets into puberty? So those are the kind of gender identities and norms that have been embodied in our system because we are highly masculinized. And Ijoma, unfortunately, there are also the feminization of those norms, where women are even the custodians of the, atrocious, exemplary behaviors against other women, especially looking at traditions, wicked widowhood traditions, and et cetera, and et cetera. So for me, I feel that until we look in between the lines, and not just the exception, that if we do not demystify, deconstruct gender identities and how they limit, first of all, the mindset, we need to have a mindset game and change at the same time. And what I mean by that is that whether you like it or not, it is here with us. I mean, you cannot take away the sexualization of politics or the media or music or the entertainment space, but how do we reform it to become, progressive in such a way that the process of power, the process of equity, the process of understanding the capacity of both sexes are what's at the fore and not the norms.
Okay, but when you spoke of something, why is it that in this part of the world we tend to want to cover the female genital side, and that's what will take me to the middle word in this book. When somebody picks this book, the first question will be, what is politics? Who is politics? Just like you asked in the book. Then the second one will be, what does it stand for? And what do I stand to gain with this? So what is it for?
So if you go to chapter 28 or chapter, page 28, chapter 3, you will see the words, well, for the sake of MBC, I'll spare you the saga. You see the word where I said dirty or dreaded.
Yes.
And that's a very instructive question. And the first answer I get from a lot of people, and highly, elder statespersons, who come to look at it. If you look at the foreword of the book, it was written by Honorable Nkoyo Toyo.
Yes.
And, when you listen to her words as you read, when it jumps at you, what you begin to see is that this is a woman who has understood, the dynamics of politics. She's been there, she's acted it, and she understands, the need to uncover and unwrap this mystification of the genitalia. It's because it has hindered the women. Scandals are always about women, whether they did it or not. You tell a woman that is in politics, oh, that she's now a man. You masculinize her role. And then you tell her that, oh, she can't marry. And then when she marries, she can't have children. And when she has children, oh, she doesn't have a boy. And so the identification around gender becomes more about the person's image as a woman and not about the capacity. And that's why the word, when you look at different contexts of the definition across different cultures, it means different things. It is relative. And like I said, if you look at when I started the page, I said in your head, not mine.
Yes.
Because already you're thinking it. So I'm trying to bring you back to the focus of why we're having this conversation in the first place. And the ideal is that we need to make sure that we do not put the word out there to identify dirt, to identify something that is obscure, to make it ambiguous and tied around, something that defines, exclusively women. And the need for that is so that when women see these things in the social media, when they read about them, there is not a fear of who they are. There is not a fear of womanhood. There is not a fear of, femininity, because it is who we are. And that is why I said there is this patriarchal socialization with the norm, so that women can keep being afraid and leaving the space because they don't want to be identified as certain people, as certain things or certain norms. But when we are able to own it and demystify it, it's like telling somebody, a thief goes and steals and he says, I know I stole. There's nothing else you tell him that he's ashamed of, because he's owned up to it. He understands the process that he will go to court and then perhaps go to jail. And again, that means self-identification. And for me, I believe that the word on the book, on itself, the title, it tells you how the human mind works. Because even when we were trying to introduce the program and you were trying to mention the title, you just said politics, gender, and power.
Exactly.
And which means that in your mind, the identification of the word already is accrued to the female gender. And that's exactly what we're trying to say, that yes, it could be gender, it could be the other word, but it is not to be dreaded because it is not dirty. But the patriarchal socialization has made it seem like the norm is that it is dirty rather than to be dreaded.
But from this your explanation of what the book is, don't you think it is important that our female children should be trained and tamed to understand what that stands for and to understand who they are? And when they grow up, they don't see themselves as a fear factor or somebody who is born to be afraid. Absolutely. Whether in politics, in education, in entertainment, or in any aspect of life. Because when you look at what is going on out there, in the everyday life, the girl child is withdrawn. So when do we do that from scratch? So when they grow up, they see themselves as you as a man and I am a woman, we can't fit in. When is it possible?
I think, first of all, let's look at how we introduce the conversation of science in our curriculum, the interpretation of who we are as human beings and how we try to, dissect whether you are a boy or a girl. And I think that's where it starts. It starts from the power broking of, sexes. And I say this because, you walk into a room where a mom is coming back from work, and perhaps Ijoma is sitting down watching TV with the brother, and the first thing the mom says is, Ijoma, come to the kitchen, let's cook.
Exactly.
And Junior, who's scoring, who's winning the game? And he sits put, and he's meant to feel entitled to his gender roles. And that's what we're trying to say. So it has to start from the family, it has to start from the school, because that's the first form of socialization for any child. And it also starts from grooming and sex education, because that's another orbit where parents run away from and shy away from. The interpretation of body parts and how you define it to a child would either make the child more afraid of herself or more aware of herself. And then when they're afraid of themselves, they make more mistakes because they do not understand the process of ownership of their body. Right. But when they are aware, they're able to have informed choices, and that's when they can say no to mean no.
All right, this book will be unraveled and launched when?
All right, so it's already on Amazon and all the other stores.
I saw it.
Yes, so you can get it online, and you have limited editions of the hard copy on demand, but the proper launch will be in February next year.
Very good. So the book, Politics and Power, authored by Adora Onyechere Signe Jack. She just told you where to get it, and The book may be celebrated. The celebration is tomorrow.
Yeah, we have like a pre-reading cocktail with a few, open-minded people to be able to, yes, and to look at what like you just discussed with me, what the name means, why we need to look at demystifying gender identities, and these are women in the feminist movement, intellectuals, and we're going to try to also run with the idea that you just explained, that we need to catch them young as well.
Thank you so much, and you can join them tomorrow when they are having the reading cocktail. Where would that be? Am I invited?
Of course you are.
So I'll be there.
Yes.
I'll be there. Well, that's it. That's the much we can take on the program. Thank you so much, Adora Sidney Jack, for your time and for also explaining to even those who don't understand what the book means on the program tonight. So you get better understanding when you go to pick a copy of the book on the Amazon and then go through it, read it, or you go to bookshelves to get a copy and make sure you read to understand. There's a difference between reading and reading to understand. Thank you for being a part of this program, and follow me on X, formerly Twitter, at EG or Sam. Until we return tomorrow 7 p.m. Good night.